Alright, so the last like 4 or 5 recording sessions, I have talked about this guy right here. But I'm gonna do a writing revisit again. I don't know how long the writing revisited series is going to have legs. And I really don't know how much engagement these videos are getting or are going to get in the future. Because I'm recording this on May 14th, so the only one that has come out so far has been Godzilla vs. Mobius and the ideas that I had for that. But I wanted to do a little bit more of a Godzilla focused writing revisited this week, which you can probably tell by my shirt. Like I've said before, I picked it off the top. That was not a conscious decision. My girlfriend is playing Xbox and she already made dinner, so I was thinking of something to do, and I figured I've been planning and thinking about this video a lot recently, so I might as well, right? Okay, so in this video, I want to go over 2 different files. I want to go over them in the order of oldest to newest. So this first one is called G-Force Profiles. So the last modified date on this guy is July 27th, 2011. So unless that date is incorrect, I would have been 14 when I wrote this. As is tradition, I seem to have used concept art for a pre-existing Toho kaiju that I found on TohoKingdom.com in the cutting room section, and this was my attempt at re-legitimizing that design as a separate entity. So this one is Parasite. It's 102 meters tall and it weighs 135,000 tons. Okay, so this one is the spawn of Dagara, who was the villain in Rebirth of Mothra 2. Okay, so in its march across Japan, Parasite caused the spread of some kind of virus. And even though Godzilla attempted to fight it, he was only able to make any sort of substantial progress against it with the help of the Gotengo and a charge of atomic energy, which I would assume was gifted to him from an outside source. So it was defeated, but the carcass was left behind, so I could always imagine it would probably regenerate or come back. It doesn't give any explanation of the powers of this thing. It's just called Parasite, and it has a height and a weight, and a short paragraph describing Godzilla's interactions with it, and obviously its ultimate demise. Ooh, next up we have Mecha-Titanosaurus, which is spelled wrong, but I believe this is concept art for the Heisei iteration of Mecha-Godzilla, otherwise known as Mecha-Godzilla 2, but I turned him into Mecha-Titanosaurus. I imagine that's because of some of these design motifs, because the tail definitely reminds me of Titanosaurus even now as an adult. 112 meters tall and 125,000 tons in weight. I think I read the modified date on this, because apparently the simians returned to reconquer the Earth in 2011, which is when this document was last modified. This is interesting. So this integrates the Diani aliens from the Dark Horse comic, which were stand-ins for the Predator from the series of the same name. Don't know why they're involved in this story, though. So the simians search out and find bones from a deceased Titanosaur, and it's emphasized not the living one, an older skeleton, and they construct Mecha-Titanosaurus with those bones. They constructed a new robot called Mecha-T. That's what's actually written there. He's not Mecha-G, it's Mecha-T. Slight tangent here, but I think the font that I used to write in this document, I think I only used the font that's in this document, which you can't see because I have it blurred out. But I think I only used this font because I had recently discovered that there were other fonts that you could use. And I think I was trying to style the different documents that I was writing slightly differently between each. And this one had this particular font. Okay, so it seems like this exists in the Showa timeline because the simians have previously built Mecha-Godzilla in this timeline, but nothing else. So Mecha-Titanosaurus, pardon me, Mecha-T, its first opponent is Gorosaurus. Wait a minute, no. Okay, so Gorosaurus loses the fight, but as soon as he loses, Godzilla shows up, I guess to finish off Mecha-Titanosaurus. And the reason I exclaimed, oh no, is because it says Godzilla had since learned from his father's mistakes in battle, and was thus able to rout the simians and destroy Mecha-Titanosaurus. So I guess this is kind of like the Gigan Rex short film, and its sequel, the Megalon short film, where this seems to take place in a timeline where Godzilla Jr. is the one that fights Mecha-Titanosaurus. Does this mean that it's a unification of Showa and Heisei's timelines, though? Doubt that's clarified here, but if I were a betting man, that's probably what I was going for. The next one is Black Kiryu, and it has the subtitle, What If It Was an Actual Godzilla monster. So I'm imagining that means if it was a unique entity from the original Kiryu. First sentence is already starting out strong. Black Kiryu is the result of aliens testing on human technology. So the aliens dredge up the husk of the Kiryu mech after the events of Tokyo SOS and then modify it and presumably put it under their control. And it says here, just like they had tampered with the technology of the original Mecha-Godzilla. So I'm assuming then that this alien species is not the simians, the black hole aliens. I've always called them the simians. As far as I'm concerned, that's their real name. But this must be a separate alien species because obviously the simians were a race of aliens already, so this must be a separate group. Perhaps it was the Balu Saludo, since they're basically just simians. Again, this was obviously written before the anime trilogy existed, so obviously that's not the case, but maybe in a rewritten version of this. It was fitted with solar-plated armor. I guess that's why it's black in coloration. The tail was tipped with space diamond, and the energy weapons shoot armor-piercing lasers. That seems like that would probably have been the case to begin with anyway. Purple Maser Cannon was reworked into a matter blaster, able to shatter bones and rip off monster flesh. That's not particularly interesting, but I like the idea that the Black Kiryu is like a retrofitted alien iteration on Kiryu with like a dark matter cannon. Because the original Kiryu had absolute zero, so a dark matter cannon would be pretty cool. I don't know. Skimmed ahead. I'm not sure if I want to keep reading. So it says the world has rebuilt from the terror and chaos of Operation Final War. The name of the race of aliens that found Kiryu's mechanical husk at the bottom of the ocean are called the Ezox? Yeah, probably the Ezox. It looks like I took heavy inspiration from the name of Shinshi Ozaki. Huh. Okay, so they're called the Ezox, but they're basically the key locks from the original Destroy All Monsters, because it says they're trying to seek revenge on Godzilla for destroying their base on Monsterland all those years ago. And that makes sense. The Ezox feel that after Operation Final War is the optimal time to try to conquer the Earth again because we're in a state of recovery from the Exilian invasion. There's a human Ezox hybrid called Lucas. I don't know what this character is or what my motivation was for writing him, but he's the pilot for Black Kiryu, which I must not have given a unique name. Well, I guess I don't have to worry about that character of Lucas, the half Ezox hybrid, because Godzilla basically, he tears all of the solar-plated armor off of Kiryu and depowers it, thus defeating it. And then for some reason, he also kills the pilot, Lucas. This takes place after Final Wars. That doesn't really seem like something he would do, so anyway. Alright, this guy is called Lepirax Larva, and Lepirax was one of the monsters that was original to the 1970s Godzilla run in Marvel Comics. I honestly don't know anything about Lepirax, but this is concept art for probably the Cretaceous Mothra in Rebirth of Mothra, so let me read. Okay, so this version of Lepirax is a combination of Mothra's DNA with household moths. Okay, so the Lepirax can lay up to 50 eggs at once. I'm assuming these things aren't that big if they can make that many of them at once, but it says this is the record of what happened, so let me read that and see what happened. Okay, this all seems to take place in the same continuity, because it said that after the key locks were defeated, all the monsters basically left Monsterland. It says Monster Island. I always preferred that name anyway. Okay, so Lepirax, however it was created, basically moved in to the cave where Mothra was living on Monster Island prior to and during Destroy All Monsters. And then the Lepirax larvae are apparently taking over the island, even to the point of forcing Kumakurus and Kamanga to move out of their places on the island. Oh boy! Kamanga had to escape to a higher cave to avoid the creatures, and Kumakurus, which is spelled incorrectly, had to assist Anguirus in driving away a wave of hungry moths. So at least Anguirus is like the protagonist of this. Eventually Godzilla is attacked for some frickin' reason, although I thought all the monsters left the island. Okay, so they just annihilate the Lepirax colony. I guess that's what makes them leave? Okay, so that was the first document. Now, the second one is called the G-Force Classified Files, and it was created on August 1st, 2 years later in 2013. Or at least that was the last modified date. Okay, the formatting's a little bit better on this. Okay, so the first monster here is Razin, and it has the Godzilla Neo artwork for Razin. As I said in that Godzilla Training Battle Monsters video, I didn't even know that the concept arts existed when I found out about the Trading Battle Monsters. So I always went with the Godzilla Neo designs as like the de facto official designs, even though I knew they weren't the official design. To me, that's what they were. Okay, so it seems, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it seems like I'm gonna have the Trading Battle Monsters first show up in an analog for Godzilla Unleashed, because it says that Space Godzilla's crystals are interacting with the world hunger abating prototype inside a particular building that is ruptured by crystal impact in Boston. I guess this is a companion piece to that Godzilla Unleashed Cities guide that I made a video about some time ago. Okay, so the crystals mutate it into a more fearsome appearance, causes the core to go haywire, constructs a hive deep within the high-rise district of Boston, and apparently it's not found until later on in the events of the Crystalline Plague, and it took Godzilla himself to defeat it. Okay, so it used the Godzilla Neo design, but it did have the ability to hover with its psionic abilities. Wow, I can tell my writing had improved in the time between these two documents. Quote, the remains of Razin's hive were studied following the crystalline regression. Scientists discovered larval pods that contain developing infant versions of the original beast. It is very likely that Razin was carrying out its original directive to replicate as a food source. That's actually kind of scary and also really awesome. Alright, Barugaron. Oh, I like the way this is starting already. The pursuit of studying wildlife is a universal one. Ooh. Barugaron originated from a planetary game reserve near the Vortok homeworld, where it was studied extensively amongst the herds of its brethren. Oh shit. The Vortok started experimenting on it. So this one was a common male bull of the species before he was removed by Vortok science. And they screwed part of it up, which causes a chemical imbalance in the enzymes in Barugaron's stomach, thus causing it to spew acidic bile in order to reduce the harm and pain to itself. So it basically flew into a blind rage and escaped captivity. Oh shit. Barugaron unknowingly obtained a parole from its sentence in imprisonment when the Vortok mothership was downed by Godzilla and Rodan during the Crystal Incursion. So the genetic tampering on the part of the Vortok, when Barugaron escapes because the mothership is downed, and I guess it was on it, it basically goes up the coast of California and destroys everything in its path, and then it gets into a fight with Godzilla, and during the fight with Godzilla, it does the vampiric bite thing and absorbs some of Godzilla's genetic code, which was already a mess because of the Vortok experimentation. It was eventually overwhelmed by the sheer number of Earth Defender kaiju, but they never found the body, so obviously it's unknown whether it's still alive or not. Alright, we've also got the Neo version of Vagnosaurus here. Buried underneath the Sahara Desert are the bones of a species of massive scorpion creatures. The species' queen survived, as it was not touched by the elements deep in its holding area underneath the sands of the Sahara. This is absolutely a tie-in to that Godzilla Unleashed Cities document that I did before, because if you remember from that video, my version of Cairo had the desert dunes move into Cairo to retake the city, and this explanation for Vagnosaurus has it so that it wouldn't have come back, but because the crystalline incursion caused the water table to shift and the desert sands to get blown away, it was unearthed, thus bringing it back to life. It was only by fate and luck that Barugaron and Zilla found themselves in the area. They escaped from London's gravitational vortex and managed to sense the power of the crystals within Cairo. I surprise even myself sometimes. Oh my gosh. This reads like the opening of Pacific Rim. Her corpse rotted in the street for weeks before Cairo was deemed fit for habitation after the crystal regression. So I guess Barugaron and Zilla killed her. Vagnosaurus had powerful defenses and incredible strength comparable to other close combat titans such as Kong or Titanosaurus. Didn't expect to see them referenced in here. The tail had such substantial strength that it could fling a fully grown Barugaron across a number of city blocks. Could you imagine flinging something of that size that far? Okay, so this is the last one. Shiigan. We're not calling it Shiigan. Why is this getting pseudo-philosophical? I don't appreciate this, younger me. In the world of kaiju, give it time, and any problem can become a massive threat. That's actually kind of good. I don't like this. When the crystal infection finally hit the city of Bangkok, the shores were layered with blankets of dead marine creatures that were electrified by the electrostatic energies emitted by the crystals. That's actually kind of awesome, I'm not gonna lie. So the crystals were preventing the sea life inside the Bangkok harbor from getting out and feeding, and then crystalline energies surged through the harbor and caused a swarm of zooplankton to become a single entity, and that entity is Shiigan. Earth Defense Force had to dispatch Jet Jaguar and Kiryu, one of the Gotengo alternative ships from Godzilla Final Wars, to assist the suffering Thailand military. What they anticipated was a monster with electrical abilities and nasty claws, but what they got was even worse. Okay, Shiigan's almost untouchable in the water, with speed underwater rivaling monsters such as Manda and Dagara. So Jet Jaguar has to communicate with the Kiryu craft in order to even keep track of where Shiigan even is. Wow, Shiigan nearly kills Jet Jaguar, and Jet Jaguar has to use the power surges in order to defeat it. While a master of electricity on par with Gabara, Shiigan could not compete with someone with similar powers, which Jet Jaguar was capable of attaining through the use of the crystalline power surges. Dude, that's so metal. Jet Jaguar literally rips it out of its exoskeleton. He rips it in half. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this is a pretty good document. It's a good thing I blurred this out. I like a lot of this. I can't believe that it's good that I waited to do this until after I did that Godzilla Unleashed Cities video. If you haven't watched that, you might want to watch it because it's pretty relevant, I think. Okay, so thoughts on today's reading. It's clear that my writing advanced between those two things, and I clearly have always had the intention of fixing existing stories, because I basically seem to have turned Godzilla Unleashed into its own standalone story. Like, I rag on the Godzilla anime all the time. Turn this shit into a Godzilla anime.
Yes.
Because it basically turns Godzilla Unleashed into a full-blown, like, Netflix series of a story. At least for the monster part. They'd inevitably screw up the human parts if this was in any way attempted in terms of adaptation. But I'm actually really surprised. That was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be making fun of it for most of that. Anyway, you guys let me know what you think of these old ideas of mine. Would they be cool to see in a modern Godzilla thing? I would hazard a guess and say most people would probably say yes. I know they're not perfect ideas. I'm sure there's holes in them somewhere, but I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. And while you're at it, hit that like button. Let's see how many more of these writing revisits I can get to. I don't know how many more documents I have. There's a lot, but I don't know what each one is about, obviously. It's been a long time. Anyways, that about does it. Take it easy, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.